Hello, everyone. This is Mack from Mack's Empowerment Counseling LLC. And today we're going to be talking about a piece of legislation that Governor Pritzker signed into law. It is HB or House Bill 4736, which talks about having mental health professionals go with first responders out into the community. All right, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right, so something that I have been advocating for a lot is for mental health professionals to be able to go out with first responders to different situations and scenarios to help them out. And now it looks like Governor Pritzker signed that bill into law. So let's go ahead and take a look. Again, you can find this at illinois.gov, and I will post a link to this in the description as well, so you guys can read it for yourself. And we're going to also take a look at the actual bill as well after this. All right, so Governor Pritzker today signed HB 4736, authorizing the creation and funding of the Co-Responders Pilot Program. The pilot will support police in areas across the state in teaming up with social services agencies to address the root cause of disturbances or crime. Initial programs will launch in Peoria, Springfield, East St. Louis, and Waukegan in the next 6 months. We know that building a safer Illinois means approaching crime from every possible angle, said Governor J.B. Pritzker. This program combines the necessary skills of police with the specialized training of social workers and mental health professionals to address the root causes of crime compassionately and safely. This is supported by data and by what law enforcement officers on the ground are telling us about the incidents they are addressing. The Co-Responder Pilot Program authorizes police officers to bring social workers and mental health professionals on calls to assess if the person is experiencing a mental health crisis. Law enforcement and social workers can then determine if a mental health facility or other supports could address their needs and behaviors. Governor Pritzker's FY23 budget allocated $10 million to fund this pilot. In addition to the Co-Responders Pilot Program, the bill addresses victims' rights and public safety holistically by mandating trauma-informed training for homicide investigators, authorizing funding to the Violent Crime Witness Protection Act, previously the Gang Crime Witness Protection Act, and creating a grant program to create tip hotlines or other victim and witness resources. Governor Pritzker also signed two other bills into law as part of his administration's research-informed and multi-pronged approach to public safety and victims' rights. HB 3863, a bill addressing the strain put on first responders and the difficulties associated with attracting and retaining officers. This fund recognizes the challenges and stress presented by a career in law enforcement and offers retention, incentives, and recruiting funds to preserve force numbers. And HB 2985, which authorizes the creation of funding to directly pay funeral expenses of children murdered due to gun violence. Previously, families had to pay for these expenses up front, then apply for reimbursement, placing a financial burden on those most in need of support during a time of tragedy. All right, let me read through this just to make sure that this is focusing on what we're talking about and not something else. All right, so from what it looks like, it is just some testimonials. So if you guys want to read through it, you guys are able to. Again, link will be in the description. So now let's go to HB 4736. All right, so now we're here to HB 4736. We had to scroll down to page 11 to get to the Co-Responders Pilot Program. So let's see what it takes a look at. Sorry, let's see what it looks like. Each department shall establish, subject to appropriation, a co-responder unit no later than 6 months after the effective date of this amendatory act of the 102nd General Assembly, including the hiring of personnel as provided in this division, along with the duties described in sections 11-1, 15-5, and 11-1.5-20. The unit's social workers are responsible for conducting follow-up visits for victims who may benefit from mental or behavioral health services. The unit shall utilize community resources, including services provided through the Department of Human Services and social workers in juvenile and adult investigations, to connect individuals with appropriate services. The unit's primary area of focus shall be victim assistance. All right. The duties of the unit included but are not limited to serving as a resource to a department's community to identify and coordinate the social services available to residents who are victims of criminal acts, networking with area social services agencies to develop a community mutual resource system and wrap around services a team based collaborative case management approach for victims in need of social service assistance, and fostering relationships with community organizations not limited to area hospitals, school districts, juvenile justice system, and various community groups. Employing social workers of the unit who shall A, upon request, provide community presentations on an array of social service topics, B, assist individuals in diversion from the criminal justice system by addressing problems or concerns through therapeutic intervention, C, facilitate follow up treatment or referral to the appropriate community resource organization, D, when requested, assist department employees in securing services for those in need and provide educational information to help the employee better understand the circumstances or the community concern. E, meet with walk in requesting information or assistance. F, protect the interests, confidentiality, and civil rights of the client. G, train social work interns who may be working with the unit. H, be on call after regular business hours as needed. I, inform clients prior to providing services under this division what communications are confidential pursuant to applicable provisions of state or federal law, rule, or regulation, and what may be shared with the social worker's employers. J, consult on all cases as needed by the department. K, perform other functions as provided in sections 11-1.5-20 or otherwise needed by a department. All right, 4, employing social workers who shall work with victims of crimes as follows. A, review police reports to identify known victims and contact them to offer direct and referred services. B, assist victims with filing police reports and victim compensation forms. C, provide safety planning services to victims. D, provide crisis counseling services to victims and their families. E, conduct home visits with victims in conjunction with police backup when needed. F, assist victims in obtaining orders of protection. A social worker in the performance of his or her duties under this subparagraph is an advocate, as that term is defined in sections 102A-3 of the Code of Criminal Procedures of 1963. G, facilitate court advocacy services for victims, including arranging for transportation to and from court. H, maintain confidential case files, which include social history, diagnosis, formulation of treatment, and documentation of services. I, perform miscellaneous personal advocacy tasks for victims as needed. J, oversee activities to ensure those victims with the most urgent needs are given the highest priority for services. K, provide status updates on the progress of a victim's case. All right, then we get to 5, adhering to and understanding the applicable policies, procedures, and orders of the department. 6, attaining department established unit goals. 7, maintaining a positive relationship with coworkers as well as the investigators from area police departments and facilitating the exchange of information and resources pertaining to investigations that will not violate confidentiality as protected pursuant to applicable provisions of state or federal law, rule, or regulation. 8, keeping informed on crime trends within the city. 9, remaining obedient and responsive to all lawful, verbal, and written orders issued by superiors. 10, completing police reports and other required documentation. 11, performing such other duties as may be required by state law, city ordinance, and department policy, or as may be assigned by a sworn supervisor. All right, then this next one, section 11-15-20, social workers. All right, so a unit social worker, unit social workers may be referred to as victim service specialists. Social workers are responsible for working as a team to provide trauma-informed crisis intervention, case management, advocacy, and ongoing emotional support to the victims of all crimes with extra attention to crimes that cause a high level of victim trauma. B. Unit social workers involved in a case under adult investigations may perform the following responsibilities: 1. Working with domestic violence investigators. 2. Assisting victims with finding safe housing, transportation, and legal assistance. 3. Providing other needed resources for victims and their families, including working with children who witness or experience domestic violence. 4. Assisting victims and their children in setting up counseling. 5. Helping reduce victims' changes of reentry into violent situations. All right, then C. Unit social workers involved in a case under juvenile investigations may perform the following responsibilities: 1. Working with families that have habitual runaways and determining why the juveniles keep running away. 2. Providing services to families where there have been domestic disturbances between the juveniles and their parents. 3. Providing resources for parents to help their children who are struggling in school or need transportation to school. 4. Providing guidance and advice to the families of a juvenile who has been arrested and what the next steps and options are in the process. 5. Assisting a juvenile with station adjustments and creating a station adjustment program in a department. 6. Providing services to juvenile victims and families where the Department of Children and Family Services either did not get involved or did not provide services. 7. Assists with overwhelming feuds between groups of juveniles. 8. Assisting in instances where the families are not cooperative with police. 9. Discussing with families and juveniles options and solutions to prevent future arrests. 10. Maintaining a list of families in need that the unit or department have had contact with for department or city special events. 11. Helping facilitate or assist a department in community-oriented events, such as setting up an event where officers or unit personnel read books with younger children, talking about cyber crimes and social media, or having an officer or unit personnel visit a school for other activities. 12. Helping reduce juvenile recidivism. All right, the next part, 11-1.5-25, training. All right, all unit employees shall be trained in crisis intervention and integrating communications assessments and tactics. Integrating communications assessments and tactics training shall be designed for situations involving persons who are unarmed or are armed with weapons who may be experiencing a mental health or other crisis. The training shall incorporate different skill sets into a unified training approach that emphasizes scenario-based exercises as well as lecture and case study opportunities. Section 11-1.5-30, privilege or confidential communications. Nothing contained in this division shall be construed to impair or limit the confidentiality of communications otherwise protected by law as privilege or confidential, including but not limited to information communicated in confidence to a social worker or a social work intern who work under the direct supervision of a social worker. No social worker shall be subjected to adverse employment action, the threat of adverse employment action, or any manner of discrimination because the employee is acting or has acted to protect communications as privileged or confidential pursuant to applicable provisions of state or federal law, rule, or regulation. All right, so now that we've finished that, the rest of it just looks like some financial assistance as well as some other stuff. But if you guys are wanting to read through it, like I said, the link will be in the description below so you guys can have access to this and read this at your own leisure. But now let me give my final thoughts. All right, final thoughts. So ultimately, overall, this is a good bill. True, there are some things in there that I might want to change, but ultimately, let's just give this a go first and see how it ends up. So it'll be interesting to see how this bill ends up. It'll be interesting to see the interactions between the social workers or mental health professionals, as well as the interactions between the police, because they have two varying different ways of doing things. Am I saying police are not compassionate? No, I am not saying that at all. All I am saying is that when you have one organization and another organization trying to merge together, of course, there may be some conflict, there may be some headbutting, there may be some resistance there. Though ultimately, overall, for both sides, they'll be able to see how one works and how the other works. make recommended changes. If those changes are taken, cool. If not, then so be it. And ultimately just continue moving in the benefit of the clients that they serve. Right. So other than that, that is it for me. So thank you guys very much for watching. Again, if you are in the Illinois area, or if you are interested in reading some of my blogs or looking at more YouTube videos, please feel free to visit mackec.com. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.